Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Mike Bankhead. I am your host. I am a bass player and songwriter from Dayton, Ohio. On this episode, I am talking to Jenny Jurcsisn, who I affectionately refer to as Dr. Jenny because she is a doctor. That makes sense, right? We get into some nerdy conversation on this episode of... So settle in for talk about science and board games and music and all sorts of weird things. Let's get to it.
We can say hello again. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Dr. Jenny. I like calling you Dr. Jenny.
Fair enough. I like hearing it.
You earned it. You worked really hard for that.
I did. Yeah.
Your doctorate is in something about the brain. Can you explain to me what exactly it is?
So technically, I have a PhD in biomedical sciences with the concentration, the focus was on physiology and neuroscience. Like with any PhD, your real expertise is going to lie in whatever you did for your dissertation. Really, it's gonna focus on whose lab you were in and the research that they were doing. I have a PhD in biomedical sciences, but what does that mean, right? So for my dissertation and the research that I was doing while I was studying, I worked on the Air Force Base, and the work that I did out there, we looked at how stress affects physical and cognitive performance, and how exercise and diet can affect those two things, the connections between all those two things. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but I really enjoyed my time there. The team I worked with was great, and we came out with some good research. So
if you wanted to, long story short, the answer to those two questions, what would you tell us?
Stress makes you perform a little worse, and diet and exercise help you perform a little better and reduce your stress levels, which seems pretty obvious.
It does, but yeah. You've proved it. That's the point. So you're a scientist. You can't just assume those things are true. You have to go prove it.
That's right. And also, I mean, that's sort of the really general nutshell of it. But we went in and looked at very specific things. So
I think that's fascinating.
Well, exercise for an hour a day, Monday through Friday.
That part doesn't sound fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm working on being motivated to actually do that. But
yeah. I always thought it was a bit ironic that I'm researching stress and exercise and diet when I'm stressed out of my mind and eating like crap and, having no motivation to exercise at all. It was kind of not quite practicing what I was not preaching, but researching,
Yeah, you're normal. You're one of us. It's okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So since we are, obviously as people, we are not what we do for a living or what we have studied, even though in your case, it's super interesting. You do other stuff. You're an artist. Why don't you tell me about that?
Yeah. So, I have always liked art and painting and all that. And when I was in grad school, being stressed out as one does, I started painting again, and I found a medium that I really just happened to connect with, and started an Instagram account just for funsies, and it kind of blew up out of nowhere. And so I turned it into a side business. So I paint with fluid inks, and I gotta stop clapping and doing hand motions while I'm recording.
No,
audio.
Go ahead. It makes it more natural. So
I suppose so, yeah. But so I paint, and if you want to see my work, because it's hard to really describe in words, I guess, just Instagram.com/JennyJ.Inc. or my website, which is also JennyJ.Inc. So I'm inspired by like organic textures and space photography, but also like histology, like when you look at slides under a microscope.
Thank you for defining that, because
yeah, no problem.
I didn't know what it meant.
So like things very big and very small are super fascinating, and rocks and I don't know, things that look very organic, I think inspire me. And yeah, I was going to see if I had I think there's a painting in the background, but you can't see it. That's okay.
Well, the folks listening can't see it either.
That's right. Good point.
Those websites are going in the show notes. So if you don't remember what Dr. Jenny said about them, just head on over to the show notes and click them, and then you can check out her art.
Yeah, it's like I said, it kind of blew up. I didn't intend for it, but it's been a fun experience to run your own business and work for yourself. It's tricky, but you're an artist, so you know that feeling. I'm sure. Yeah. So it was a new experience for me, but it was a fun one, I think.
You say was. Does that mean you're not running your own business anymore?
Okay, so I will still be painting and so forth, but I actually just this past week got hired on at Sinclair to start teaching. So as of January, I will be slowing down my art painting quite a bit and really focusing on teaching. So I'm really excited about that. It just happened. It all happened very suddenly, but I'm very excited.
That's good. Congratulations.
Thank
Hopefully this doesn't lead you being stressed out again.
Oh,
at least not too much. What art is like a good positive release for you. So
I guess I think when you make anything a business or like a sort of revenue stream, it becomes stressful regardless of how much you like it. I do like teaching, and I think teaching science is very rewarding. And I think that certainly, as this pandemic has shown, there's a dearth of scientific understanding within the general public, which is unfortunate. So
it's a crying shame is what it is.
It is, yeah. So I'm excited to kind of start planting those seeds of scientific thought into young people.
That's awesome. You say this, and you're still rather young yourself. At least, you look young to me as an aging dude. But
well,
yeah,
thank you.
You got to be somewhat grown to go to school long enough to get a doctorate. So, I mean, it's not like you're 16 unless you're a super genius. You might just be just a regular genius, though. Not necessarily.
A genius. That's the thing about PhDs, though, and education and higher education. It has very little to do, I've found, in my experience, with like really being intelligent and clever. It has more to do with wherewithal, determination, and stick-to-itiveness. That's what I found, because you can be, and certainly there are very, very intelligent people that just can't do the 9 to 5. Maybe they can't handle the extreme stress and the deadlines. I certainly, even though I made it through, I struggled with deadlines. I had to, do rewrites of drafts and things, and struggled with deadlines. So again, I think sometimes, especially for maybe people like you and I who have these sort of academic interests, and like we like sci-fi and we like things about learning how the world works. I think sometimes communities like ours can glorify higher education and people that have achieved those things and say like they're geniuses. It's not necessarily true. Like, they had the ability and they had the support system to get through and do these things. If you didn't have the money to go to college, if you couldn't get the loans, if you don't have somebody helping you, taking you to school, do you have to take the bus to school every day, or do you have a car? All of those things matter. And yeah, so I think there are a whole lot of equally maybe even more so, smart people that exist out there that don't have PhDs. You know what I mean?
See, that's a fascinating thing to think about. So what we learn then about you, you don't want us to think you're a genius, so that's cool. So, but we do learn that you work hard and that you don't quit.
I suppose. I think I just have the mindset that I know the privileges that I have, and I think that of course you have to have some degree of knowledge, a knowledge base to get through educational programs, but there's also this whole other set of stuff that a lot of people don't have access to, that I had access to, that allowed me to get through these things. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to, I'm not a genius. And believe me, there are a lot of PhDs out there who are also not geniuses. So a lot of them who are, a lot of them who aren't. They're normal folks just like you and me.
Good to know. So when I asked you to come do this, you mentioned you were afraid you didn't have anything to talk about, and that has not been a problem so far. But you mentioned one of the things you're interested in is board games, which is, of course, a reasonably niche kind of interest that I happen to share. So do you want to nerd out on board games for a few minutes?
Totally. Let's do it.
All right. You tell me what kind of board games you like. And I may or may not have played them, but yeah, I'll let you go first.
Oh boy. Okay. There's so many. I should, first of all, we should play games sometime because we need to get together because
you have a bunch of them at Yellow Cab.
Do we?
Yes.
Oh.
They're on a shelf.
Okay. Well, I tend to like very involved, strategy-oriented games, but so for example,
Twilight Imperium.
that one's a little intense because there's only so much time you can allot to board gamings, right?
So I haven't played that one, but I read very much about it, and it seems so interesting. But every time I read about it, it's like, be prepared to dedicate 10 hours to this.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I just don't have that. But, things like, I don't know if you've played the pandemic games, but... I
have not, but they seem to be very, in the context of what's been going on, bring on a whole new relevance. And I've actually never played a cooperative board game.
Yeah, it's fun to... Like, I'm a competitive person, so I love to, kick of my loved ones.
Crush them, basically.
That's right. Yeah. That's how I show love. That's my love language. But cooperative gaming is also fun. But what I was going to say is if you've played the pandemic games, the pandemic legacy games are unbeatable. They're so good. So we've played Pandemic Legacy 1 and 2, and right now we're playing the prequel Pandemic Legacy 0. It's very, very good. But I like everybody, I started getting into modern board gaming by playing Settlers of Catan, and
the gateway drug game. That's
right, yeah. And Seven Wonders, and well, they're escaping me now. Oh, have you played Eclipse? You would like Eclipse.
I have not.
Oh, you would love Eclipse. It's space themed, and it's quite large in both physically and in kind of a scope and scale. But that one's a lot of fun. Resource management, but there's also a battle system, so you can win in different ways. What else do I like to play?
Is it random is a question that I have about Eclipse. Now, actually, this is a question I have about all games, because like you, I enjoy crushing those that I love in competitive board gaming. But I like those games to require that someone has done something worthy of praise in order to win, as opposed to just pure randomness based on Like I want a game that rewards somebody having a strategy, regardless of whether that strategy is rudimentary. But I want a game that rewards someone that has thought something through and executed it. And some games don't, and those are the ones I shy away from.
Same. So the one, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I share those sentiments. The one downside, I should say, to Eclipse is that there is some dice rolling involved. So, when you battle someone, it doesn't matter necessarily how well you upgraded your ships. If you roll like crap, you'll still get destroyed. So, but other than that, it rewards strategy, certainly foresight and so forth.
How does that play with two people?
I don't know if I've ever played it just two people. I don't own this game.
Oh, so then that's something we could change.
Yeah, it's a game my friend has, and we'd go to his house and play it quite often. But trying to think of other games that you would like that reward a lot of well thought out strategy.
I have a few in mind, but I'm letting you go first. And the reason I asked the two people question, see over here, it's just me and my wife.
Right.
So when we get a game, one of the things I think about is how playable is this with two people as opposed to 4 or 5. A good example is Settlers of Catan, which we don't own, but which, like everyone, I've played a million times. That game's different with two people because there's so much more space on the board, and you might not even interact with the other person on the board, and it's just not the same challenge, right? We try to get games that are okay for two people and also for more.
So, obviously, I play games with Charlie, and we've kind of run into the same issue of what are some good 2-player games. And we have landed on, I don't know if you've played any escape room games.
I have not. And I've seen pictures of you being victorious in these on your social media. You and Charlie appear to be very good at it.
We are. I'm not even going to lie. We are very good at escape rooms, and they're so much fun. So if you are, I get the feeling that you would also do very well in an escape room. So we physically love to go do escape rooms, but since the pandemic, obviously, a lot of those either shut down completely, went out of business because they were shut down, or just the restrictions had them temporarily closed. So there are some companies who make essentially escape rooms in the form of board games, be it like card based or you have little like puzzle based, like jigsaw puzzle based, things like that. So we do play a lot of those as well, and I think you would like them. I think you would, if you like solving puzzles, which it sounds like you do.
I do.
You would like them.
All right. So here are a few in my collection since you're stuck. Then you can tell me what's in your collection. We have Carcassonne, which you seem to be familiar with. That plays pretty well with two people.
Yep.
We also have an expansion for it, so if we had a lot of people, we could. The expansion is playable with two, but it's an expansion, so it's like this makes it bigger. We have Dominion, but the original one, which is a deck building game. I like it better with 4, but it plays pretty well with 2 people. And the thing about Dominion, even though we only have one version of it, it's endlessly configurable, the version we bought. So I don't know that we'll ever get tired of it because you can change the parameters. But if we did, the people who make that game have put out like a bazillion different versions of Dominion. So, but that's pretty replayable for a 2-person game. We have Ticket to Ride, not the original. We have the European map because I like Europe. That was tough for 2 people. It's too easy to win with only 2 people. But
yeah, Ticket to Ride is one of those classics that, in my opinion, very rarely gets boring. You might like. We've played a lot of the expansions. It's such a good go-to game, especially if you have like family coming over and they're not necessarily, they're not going to be interested in playing freaking Twilight Imperium, but Ticket to Ride, absolutely very accessible. The Rails and Sails expansion is very good.
Writing that down.
The map spans like the Great Lakes region, and not only do you build, trains, but also shipping lanes. So that adds a kind of new dimension to it that I enjoy. Love Ticket to Ride. I'm blanking. You mentioned one, and it sparked.
Carcassonne and Dominion were the other two I mentioned.
That's right. I haven't played either of them, but
we're gonna have to fix that.
Definitely.
So,
you know how you get familiar with these games. You know what types of games they are.
Yeah.
You've seen the boxes a billion times, but you just don't happen to own them. Yeah.
So Carcassonne, first of all, it's an actual real place in southern France. Magical place. If anyone has the means to get there. It's
Have you been?
Yeah, more than once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a subject for a different podcast episode. But it's a medieval walled city. That's the old walled city part of it has been like perfectly preserved, and that is the theme of the artwork on the actual game pieces. But essentially, on Carcassonne, the map is built as you go. So the first starting piece is always the same. Every other part of the map is done via blind draw. So it is mathematically not really very possible to ever play the same thing twice because it's, again, built as you go. And since the people playing control the building and where you put things strategically to your advantage controls the building, the playability is endless. The only limit you have is if the more people, obviously, the less space there is to move around once the map gets built, and enter expansions in case you want to add more space or an extra game dynamic. Dominion is a card deck game where your objective is to accumulate points, and you do that by getting cards that give you points, and you cycle through each card that you draw that tells you to do a thing, either penalizes your opponent or helps you to cycle through faster and get more points. They're both relatively simple to learn. Like, I feel like 8 to 10-year-old could learn how to play each of those. But again, if you want to win, each of them require a strategy of some sort. And while there is some randomness in both, it's not the kind of randomness that would probably change an outcome on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking another really great legacy game is Betrayal Legacy. Have you played the game Betrayal at House on the Hill?
I have not.
Okay, it was like a highly sought after game for a while because they just did like one printing of it and then it got really popular. But it's similarly a game where a group of you venture into a haunted house and you build the house as you explore. You put down different room tiles as you explore the house. And it's supposed to kind of play out like a silly B horror movie. And then when the haunt happens, it's cooperative at first, but then one of you turns bad and you now have to battle against your former comrades. And it's a lot of fun, but the legacy version of it is like 1,000 times better. It's so good. I'm very lucky in that I have a group of people that I play board games with every Sunday night. And so we're able to play these legacy games sort of week after week, which, if you don't have like a good group, it's kind of, it's impossible to play a legacy game because, I couldn't get together this week. And then you forget what's happening in the story and all that. So they're really only good if you have that reliable group to play with every week or so. But if you do, man, that's a good one. I really enjoyed that one.
How long does a legacy gameplay last then?
It depends. I think that most, at least the ones that I've played, span like a year, if you will. So that's like 12 like games, but there are also conditions where you might have to replay a month or something. But I guess on average, 12 plays per legacy game.
Yeah, you'd have to find a group of seriously committed people in order to execute that properly.
Yeah, I mean, some people have, D&D groups that they play with every week, and those types of folks, I encourage you pick up one of the legacy games I've mentioned. They're so much fun.
That sounds like something designed to get the people who play D&D to do something different.
Maybe so.
That seems like that's what the people who were designing those games was going for.
Yeah, it's possible. Or I think, like in terms of Pandemic, if you've played Pandemic enough, you could see how the creators of that game just thought a little harder about it, and they were like, I think we can expand this and make it really truly compelling and give it a story. So Pandemic Legacy is very well thought out game. I'm going to stop going on about it.
No, it's okay.
So
maybe we can get them as a sponsor somehow.
Oh yeah.
The other one that we have is Splendor. Are you familiar with that one?
I am familiar with Splendor. Yeah.
That one also plays okay with two people.
Yeah, it does. It's quick. It's a quick game.
Can be. Requires some thinking ahead and mathematics skills, which is why I think you would probably be very good at it.
Yeah, the version that we have is like a Marvel superhero version of it.
I haven't seen that one. I have the old school one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I wasn't like in love with it. I didn't want to play it again. It's fine. I don't know.
I wonder if the mechanics are the same or if they've changed them.
That's a good question.
Like sometimes when special versions are made, they only change the art, but sometimes they also change the mechanics to go with the new theme.
You sort of it's based on jewels, the power gems of the Infinity Gauntlet or
pretty
whatever.
Easy. Well, the original is also based on jewels, so it's easy to port that idea over.
Exactly, it works very well, and so the sort of resources you accumulate are the superheroes within the Marvel universe, with the Avengers being sort of like the top tier, worth the most and more varied gems, and the minor superheroes being worth fewer or cheaper to buy. I don't know. Like I said, I played it once. It was okay.
The mechanic sounds the same. It seems like they might have just changed the art.
Yeah. It was okay. But I also like the Ravensburger games, like what is Broom Service is a good one. Castles of Burgundy. Those games are just really good. Broom Service especially is a different take on the kind of resource on the traditional resource management game. That's a fun one. Which I have. We'll play that one sometime. Cool. So,
what else do you have in your collection right now?
Oh my god!
Well, if you don't remember, you can turn around and look. I'm sure they're close.
It's all downstairs. We have this massive shelf. You don't even know. We have a one of those IKEA 5x5s that we've stacked shelves on top of to not even hold all of our board games. It's out of control.
All right, let me rephrase. Which ones do you find yourself taking off of that shelf the most often?
The most. We were playing Gloomhaven for a while, which is again more campaign-based, episodic. We haven't played that in a while. We just recently played Secret Hitler, which is like a hidden identity game.
That sounds dark.
It's darker now that in the current climate, but that one's a lot of fun. If you've played what is it called? Avalon or shit, what was that really popular one that I hated? I forget. But this is a hidden identity game done very, very well, where you sort of have your identity. You're either a liberal, like a party member, or a fascist, and then one of the fascists is also Hitler. And the fascists, Hitler doesn't know who anyone else is, but the fascists know who Hitler is. So the fascists are aiming to protect that person assigned as Hitler, and you pass liberal and fascist laws. And if you pass so many liberal laws, the liberals win. And so it's a whole thing. But it's excellent for parties. Again, when you want to get mad at your friends and yell at them and lie to them and get pissed off, that's a great one. Another good one is Call of Cthulhu, another hidden identity game. That one's great. What else? I don't know, but we recently just busted out Secret Hitler after a long hiatus on Sunday and played it with our group, and it was a ton of fun.
You mentioned games that cause a lot of yelling and shouting, and it reminded me of one, and I can't remember what it's called. I've only played it online because I'd like to keep all my friends, but lying is a intrinsic mechanism of this game. It's one where you're all countries and you're forming alliances prior to the First World War.
Oh.
And I can't remember for the life of me what that's called. Hang on, I'm going to Google it and we'll just edit this nonsense out when I edit the podcast.
Okay.
Oh, I just remembered. That's the old part of my brain kicking in. It's called diplomacy.
Ah, okay.
So everybody is a country, and the turns are, first there's a talky part of the turn where you make an alliance. So like if you're the Ottoman Empire, you go tell the Russians, hey, I want to attack you, but in order for me to not attack you, how about we both go after Romania, or how about you let me take Greece, I let you take Poland. But at the same time, the Ottoman Empire could be like telling the French, hey, I'll go ahead and take the Russians if you give me a free hand, to do this other thing. And so there's a chatty phase where you make your bargaining, and then there's a action phase where everybody does the thing.
Right.
And then there's another chatty phase, and the gameplay is surely different online because you're not in the same room. So the way it works online is there's like a 24-hour turn between all the phases. So online it takes a while to play.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. In person, right, in the chatty phase, everyone just leaves to a different part of the house, and you you work your schmoozing, and then you come back and do the thing. But it's the kind of game I would love to play with people, but I don't want telling lies and malfeasance and skullduggery to be a normal part of my personality. And I could definitely see people getting really upset over that particular. Branch out and be evil.
Right.
I mean, really, you're just honoring history if you put a dagger in your friend's back, right?
That reminds me.
Looking at you, Molotov and von Ribbentrop. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
That was a really nerdy history reference.
Yes, I am. I am not ashamed to say I did not get it. So.
Molotov and von Ribbentrop were the ambassadors between Germany and the Soviet Union, and they're the ones that signed that secret deal to divide Poland during the Second World War. Fantastic.
Oh, I learned something new every day. But that reminds me of Werewolf. It sounds like we used to have this is way back in the day. We would go to like a Steak and Shake and sit and play the Werewolf game, where everybody. It's exactly the same as all of these hidden identity games. You chat and you talk, and eventually it moved to, because we couldn't physically get together anymore, and we started playing it online. And there were like 24-hour phases where we'd all talk on the boards, and then privately message each other about who the werewolves were going to kill and so forth, and their players with secret powers and all of that. That sounds very similar. A lot of these games all have the same basic mechanic. It's just how they're wrapped and presented and how the story's told. So
yeah, and that's really if people are listening and confused, the big takeaway in the world of gaming is there's only so many different things you can do in a game, right? You either have to accumulate resources or accumulate things in order to score points to win, or accumulate points via a card deck, or somebody is a secret thing and you have to figure out who that thing is. Like there's, yeah, Dr. Jenny makes a good point. There's only so many game mechanics. What makes them different is the game designers might dress them up with a twist or combine some aspects of resource building and some aspects of this other thing.
Or theme it well. It's kind of like music, there's only so many chord progressions and or storytelling. I think somebody smarter than me who understands literature, when you really analyze storytelling, there's six stories and they just get retold in different ways over and over and over and over and over again. So
person versus nature, person versus person,
that's
nature
right,
versus person, person loves person, person breaks up. I mean, it's what you do to build that into a bigger world, and then how you tell it is what makes it compelling, right?
Do you like audiobooks?
I do not. And I will give you the reason for that is I read faster than someone reading to me.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'm going to have sound in my ear, it's going to be music. I'm a musician after all.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair. I've been listening to audiobooks because I can do it while I'm painting.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to a few like hard science fiction books.
Have you gotten to the Expanse books yet?
Not yet. I'm not there yet. Right. I just finished the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, which people probably know it better as like the 3-body problem books. And then I just started what are they called? Like the Mars trilogy. It's the first book is Red Mars, and then there's like Blue Mars and Green Mars. I don't know. So far, that one's really good. But I'm getting there. All right. I actually have Leviathan Wakes. That's over on my shelf somewhere. I should
Well, that one you got to read first. Leviathan Falls just came out 2 weeks ago.
I see.
It is the 9th and final book in the series. Yeah, 9. You're getting 9.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a commitment.
I mean, you read that first one, you'll want all 9. But they also put it on TV. There's a TV series, and this is his last season. The TV series only goes through book 6. But I'm like nerdily enthusiastic about this because it is, as you said, hard sci-fi. Not to denigrate Trek, because I grew up on Trek and love Trek, but in real space, you can't just walk around the ship when it's moving the way they do on Trek, right? The ship goes one way, but gravity's pulling you another way because they have artificial gravity plating, which is not a thing, right? So, like in the world of the Expanse, you only have gravity when you're under thrust, or you're on a spin station, as it would work.
Say spin drives.
Yeah, spin station or under thrust. The thrust pushes you to the back of the ship, so down is wherever the engines are. In order to change direction.
Read The Martian? Oh, sorry.
I did not, but I saw the movie. Is that bad?
No, not at all. It was pretty good. The movie was a pretty decent adaptation of the book, but if you like hard, well-researched science fiction,
I do.
The Martian is where it's at. We actually recently read the other book that guy wrote, the same author, Andy Weir. It's called The Hail Mary Project. Not nearly as good. I don't really recommend that one, but The Martian is a very, very well researched. When you're, I guess this happens to if you're a nerd or a scientist or whatever, and you sort of know a bit about physics and biology and stuff, and you read a book, and sometimes you can only suspend so much disbelief,
right,
where you're like, this is ridiculous. Come on, that's not the way it works. I had the opposite experience with The Martian, where I was like, holy shit, that's accurate. That's right. They did that right. Oh God. So that's a good one to read. Yeah.
Well, I have a science fiction hole in my heart right now because I've finished the Expanse series. So the 3-body problem, which I've heard of and is really well known, but I have not read. And that's on the list, thanks to you. And The Martian also on the list, thanks to you.
Yeah, I can. So far, Red Mars is very good by Kim Stanley Robinson, but I haven't finished it yet. But so far, it's pretty good too. Trying to think what else. I mean, I also I'm a big fan of the fantasy, but the Song of Ice and Fire books, Game of Thrones series. I mean,
Yeah, I lean more science fiction than that universe.
that's fair. That's fair. I do too.
But those are really popular. One must admit.
Well, I am too. I'm kind of in that same place where I don't always love fantasy. I don't know, something about it. But these books, the fantasy element is sort of secondary to the world building and the story crafting is so exquisitely done. I'm sure I don't have to tell the public this, but those are very good books.
That's an argument. See, this is an argument for you to read The Expanse first. No, one of the dudes that wrote those used to work. One of the dudes that wrote those used to work with George R. R. Martin, and they're like pals.
Oh, okay.
And they knew what the last line of book 9 was going to be when they were writing book 2. They said this in an interview. Mm-hmm. So they said, I mean, it took them a few years to get there. But if you like, foreshadowing and hard sci-fi. I'm going to stop caping for The Expanse now, but I love it.
No, I mean, I'm on board. I have had that book for I don't know how many years. I had to seek it out when it was new, and I just like some things, especially when you're in school and getting graduate degrees, these things fall by the wayside. So, and
also, there's a lot of books.
Yeah.
It's a lot of books. There's a lot of music. It is impossible to consume them all.
It's true. That's true.
I feel like I've taken up enough of your time today. So we're going to bring the recording portion of this to a close. Is there anything that you would like to pitch or promote other than your art at the moment?
Well, I know that I've recently started kind of learning music, and I really truly have Kylene Downs to thank for that. I never really played an instrument in earnest before, and it was her music that I've been learning on, and obviously Charlie plays with her. So check out Kylene's music. I'm sure anyone that's listening to your podcast probably knows of her already, but
if they're from Dayton, they might. But right. I hope that people eventually listen to this everywhere. So there'll be a link to that in the show notes. And you recently did a gig with her, didn't you?
I did. They needed a bassist to fill in, so I spent the entire summer learning and practicing, and it was a lot of fun. I was real nervous, but it was a lot of fun.
How did it feel after?
Oh, great. I mean, although, you, of course, you hyper analyze, like, oh, I made a mistake here and I did this wrong there and all of that. But I had some friends show up. So I was I don't know. It's exciting. I love learning new things. If there's one takeaway about me, it's that I love a challenge, love new things. I like to dip my little toes into all the pies I can get, right? And be they art, music, science, whatever, board games, video games. So yeah, it's always fun to sort of conquer your fears as well. Like, oh no, I'm doing this new thing. I'm scared and I got to perform in front of everybody. And then of course, afterward, you're like, yeah, I did it. Can I swear? I didn't ask that ahead of time.
I mean, I'm going to edit it out because I want to keep this PG, but
sounds good. Okay.
Don't, you can.
Okay. Fair enough.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I already knew you were interesting and cool, and now we have just all learned new things about you.
Oh, stop.
But we'll have to do this again and talk about more nerdy science fiction and music and board games and stuff. But thanks, I appreciate it.
Anytime, Mike.
Thanks again to Dr. Jenny for spending her valuable time talking to me. Thank you, dear listener, for spending your valuable time listening to me have conversations. If you enjoyed this podcast, might I suggest, encourage, implore you to like and or subscribe on the podcast listening apparatus platform of your choice? I'd really appreciate it. Have a very nice rest of your day.